Jared Polin, FroKnowsPhoto.com, and welcome to RAWtalk episode number 45, to be named later. We do have a special guest this week who's going to be on a little later, named Dom Savini. He shoots cheerleaders like the NFL cheerleaders. He shot tons of people, the Roots, a lot of commercial stuff. We're going to find out how he got those gigs and how he got to where he is today. Cool guest, another Philly photographer that we're having on. Can't wait to have him here in the loft to talk to a little later. So the housekeeping stuff, Steven.
Yes.
You were there when I filmed the Antonelli Institute speech.
I was.
Did you like it?
I did.
Like you learned something from it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was basically I went and I talked to these kids that were graduating in like 6 days, and then the first year students who are going to be turning into second year students. That audio is now up for subscribers to the podcast. You can't get it on YouTube yet. You can't get it on the website. The only way you can access it is through your whatever client you use for podcasting. It is in the list. It says exclusive content, Antonelli Institute. I recommend that you subscribe there on iTunes because we have it on our iOS device, and that's how you can access this hour-and-a-half long discussion or speech that I gave at Antonelli Institute. So that is the only way you can get it. The Fro strap is now out. That's right, the FroKnowsPhoto I Shoot Raw strap, which I am not wearing right now. It is red. It's still up for pre-sale. That pre-sale is going to end very soon because the straps are coming in, and or if we sell out of them, because we're almost sold out of them. I didn't really give you guys a number, but we are almost sold out of them, so we're in the final stretch, and if that goes, then we got to pull it down because there are none left in the country. They have to go back into production to make more, and that's a whole different process. So that's up at store.FroKnowsPhoto.com. Still pick it up for $69.95. That's $5 off the regular price of $75, as well as get 3 free lens cloths, a $5 coupon code for your next order, as well as free shipping in the U.S. and $10 flat shipping around the world. Get that out of the way. We've got Dom Savini coming up. And Steven, remember when I was doing the Karen O stuff last week?
I do.
Wait a minute,
Your excellent singing skills.
I'm a fan. I was thinking of that. What's that other song? Well, it wasn't by them. It was the Ting Tings.
Oh, is that the...
My name is Stacy. I'm not your girl.
Isn't it called like...
That's not my name.
That's not my name, yeah.
That's not my name. That's not my name.
What happened to that band?
That's not my name is Stacy. My name is Steven. My name is Fro-Knows. It's not my name. It's not my... I don't know. They disappeared. Yeah. Like every other band disappears.
They had a second album, but I guess it didn't hit off.
Maybe
like
you didn't do
one.
a good job on your radio station, Steven.
I don't know. Maybe we didn't promote it enough.
Maybe somebody didn't...
Maybe it wasn't that good.
Maybe somebody didn't put enough pay... Well, you can't say that.
Payola or Payola?
Yeah, payola. I love pay to play, personally. I have no... It's called advertising, in my opinion.
That's the new way. That's the legal way.
Oh yeah, the legal way is you buy an ad on the station. Why not just... I get it. I get why payola isn't great, but payola has launched some massive stuff.
Oh yeah.
Semisonic, Closing Time. They said they spent $400,000 to get it onto stations, and it freaking exploded.
Well, I think that there's a new method of payola these days. It's instead of paying the DJ or whatever to play that track, you're just sending them free stuff. You know, here's a deluxe edition of the album. Here's a vinyl.
That's not enough payola.
I'm just saying.
I've heard stories.
Yeah, I've heard stories too.
So getting back to this, right before we jump into the news, I want to let you guys know that we've been using the Rokinon lenses and we have to send them back. The review is over. Yeah, it's a bummer because maybe I'll have to go buy it. We've been using the 85mm 1.5T on my D4. For anybody that's watching at home, it's been crispy. It's been colorful. It's been fantastic for using here in the studio. So I just figured I would do a quick review before we throw it back. It's fantastic for stuff like this. It's great for filming. If you're shooting stills in the studio, things that aren't moving, because it's only manual focus, it's going to work well for that. Yeah. Obviously, it doesn't autofocus, so in my opinion, and it's not the best for music, and it's not the best for things that are moving fast like sports.
Not at all.
But if you have time and you're doing video, the
studio stuff,
the 1.5T is great because it has all the sprocket holes on the side. So I want to thank them for sending that out. We're going to send the 3 lenses they sent me back. I've enjoyed using them. That's really it. They've been sharp and contrasting. And that's what I look for in a lens, especially for this video stuff popping. Not sure what we're going to go to next. Maybe I'll have to buy an 85 1.5.
Yeah, I mean, they're great. I think they're super sharp, really nice.
Yeah, because
colors are great.
Well, I think it's better than the 24-70 where we're using Nikon. 24-70 2.8 because it's not a fixed lens. Maybe I'll pick one of these up. I think it was $5.99.
Something like that,
Something along those lines. Maybe they'll cut me a deal.
Maybe.
I don't know. I'll ask. But Steven,
Yes, sir.
what's up in news?
No intro music this week?
I didn't want to interrupt you, Steven. But you do have intro music.
You just interrupted me just now.
His name is Steven. He does the photo news on Radio 104.5. No, he does the photo news on FroKnowsPhoto.com. His name is Steven. Go ahead, Steven.
First up, a new website called LensTag is now up. They're offering a new concept of basically how to track your camera equipment or how to report it if it's stolen, stuff like that. It's basically an online equipment registry that makes it easier to report and track.
I like the word repository.
Repository. Registry?
No, repository. It's where you place things. It's an online repository for your serial numbers of all of your gear.
Okay, so an online equipment repository.
I like repository.
That makes it easier to report.
Not suppository.
And track
Do you know
stolen
what a suppository
cameras.
is?
Yes, I do.
I don't understand that. A suppository?
Yeah.
You got to put it in your tuchus?
It's not here nor there, so we're going to talk about that.
That's a different podcast that I do called the Rectal Hour.
Oh, yeah, it's a great hour. I love listening to that. But yeah, you can basically track stolen cameras and lenses. You put up all your equipment, you put up the serial numbers, and it's just an online database for yourself. It's free to register. You can check if your lens is stolen with ease. It's a lot harder for people to resell it if they steal it.
Well, it's a lot harder if it catches on.
If it catches on,
and
yes.
That's the thing. And I think it has the backing of Borrow Lenses, it has the backing of Lens Rentals,
and it does.
Which makes sense because they ship a lot of stuff around the world. But if it takes off, we saw that Petapixel ran a story on it. We have a story going now because I was in talks with these guys. I'm trying to get the guy behind it on. I talked to him.
Yeah, engineer Trevor Serrer.
Well, I don't know his last name.
He was a Google engineer.
But he emailed me, and I'm going to be talking to him.
Cool.
Get him on the phone.
It's a great idea.
It's a fantastic idea. Right now it says there's no plans to monetize. That will change quick.
I was going to say that's definitely going to change.
Anytime you start getting a lot of traffic, monetization is there. If you get a ton of page views, that equals the ability to put out advertising because people are going to want to advertise.
Yeah.
Everybody, you protect your lens here at, what's it called?
LensTag.
LensTag, then protect it with the lens coat from Lens Coat. You know, Scott Elowitz, who started Lens Coat. But wait. Whoa. Don't interrupt me, Steven.
Oh, my God.
What was I going to say? Oh, the only thing I didn't like about it so far is that I have a URL and people can find my URL.
Yeah.
I don't even know what I created. I can change it. I don't want people being able to see what gear I have.
Yeah, that's the thing.
That's like, hey, this guy has this gear. Let's go steal it.
Yeah, they know where you live. If you put all your stuff up, that's not really going to be fun.
And technically, I guess if you're going to resell a lens, if it's stolen, you're not going to take the nameplate off of it or scratch out the serial. It's not
number.
like a gun.
Yeah.
So what were you going to say before you were interrupted?
I was just saying the fact that it's backed by Lens Rental and Borrow Lens.
Do you know how people say not to interrupt you and then they go and talk? My favorite thing is I was on the phone with somebody yesterday and I was like, I'm going to interrupt you. I'm like, to interrupt you. And I do it, I do it normally. So
every time.
Whatever. It works 60% of the time every time. But don't say, when you're going to talk to somebody, don't say, not to interrupt you, but you are interrupting. So just say, I'm to interrupt you. Don't, go ahead, Steven.
Are you going to tell me that next time?
What, not to interrupt you?
No, to interrupt me?
I just did. I'm going to interrupt you. Steven, let me interject here into the repository.
That sounds terrible, but it's not suppository, I guess. Next up, researchers, they developed a technique for recording up to 360 terabytes of data onto a glass disc, which they're claiming should be readable for 1 million years.
How many years?
1 million.
How many years?
1 million.
That's better, Steven. Did they say the size of the disc?
They didn't say the size. It's just an optical glass disc. And yeah, it should be readable for, they're saying after the human race is extinct.
How many years?
1 million years.
1 million years. But the problem with this is, it's probably never going to come out.
As far as consumers go, yeah.
But 360 terabytes is quite a lot of information. So just one of those discs could store the whole Library of Congress, probably.
Yep.
And that would be
cool.
They
said, actually.
They did say that?
I think they did, yeah.
Oh, I didn't read it.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't read it. I just knew that it was 360 terabytes on a glass disc that was going to last
1 million years.
Thank you, Steven.
1 million years.
Don't interrupt. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, so that's pretty cool. I mean, I don't have a use for it because in 1 million years, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
It really does. Because whatever. Next, that was good. I like that.
Well, just back on that or details. Researchers at the University of Southampton, they demonstrated a way to record and retrieve the data via a single disc. It's called quartz glass. They call it.
Oh yeah, because quartz glass. Like in your Swatch watch.
I don't know. But they're saying it can withstand temperatures of up to 100 degrees Celsius and should keep the data stable and readable after the human race.
What about after the human? You mean gone? After the human race is gone?
Yeah.
And so what is the problem? What's the big deal? Like,
I guess if aliens happen to come and see what we did, they can still read it.
They'll be like, oh, let's go listen to RAWtalk, episode 45, where they talk about suppositories. And then we bring back, then they're like, oh, the suppository was awesome. They're aliens with suppositories.
What was it, the anal hour? What were you calling it?
The anal hour. No, it was called Rectal Talk or something.
Rectal Talk, that's it.
I'm sure
they'll want to listen to that.
PG rating.
And then next up, speaking of storage, a new business card solution is being offered by a new company called Cardable and Convenience. They specialize in creating credit card sized,
What's
customizable.
their website? Cardableandconvenience.com?
It's something like that.
I can't even spell it.
Just search up Cardable + convenience and you'll see it. But yeah, they're specializing in creating credit card sized, customizable USB drives that look like a business card. And they measure about 2 credit cards thick. And they basically can fit your wallet. And they come in several different pre-selected prints, or you can upload your own logo or print if you want to use it yourself. And you can basically store, for photographers, you can store your portfolio on there, or a new creative way to hand all your photos to your client, or whatever it may be. Almost done. And price-wise, it looks like it'll be about $10 on for a 4 gigabyte card, $15 on an 8 gigabyte, and $20 on a 16 gigabyte, and it goes up to 32 gigabytes. But that's a ton of money for one card, if you're planning on using them as actual business cards.
Wait a minute, Steven. Keep talking. I'm going to go grab some business cards off my desk from 2 people.
So yeah, it's a ton of it's a lot. But it's a lot of money. So if you guys are planning on using it for a business card solution, it's not really something that you'll be handing out on a daily basis. It's something you'll be handing to important clients or clients that you really respect or that worked out great, or whatever it may be.
I mean, maybe delivering the final product.
That's what I'm saying. If you want to deliver, it's a new creative way to do it. It's not your standard, here's a DVD or here's whatever, here's the prints. Just something to remember you by.
Yeah, I got it. But that's kind of expensive.
Well, if you add an extra $10 to whatever you're charging your client.
That's not a big deal. That, but when I give somebody a hard drive, like I give them a hard drive, or you give them a flash drive, you give them a freaking SD card with 32 gigs on it.
Yeah.
But this thing obviously has a built-in USB port, I'm assuming.
It does. It basically has a little thing that you can flip up that folds back down to be like a credit card.
I wouldn't be giving these out. I don't think that's a great takeaway, personally. I don't think that's a great leave behind to a client, because they have to go put it in their computer. I think a better leave behind is just still a photo book.
Yeah, no, I agree on that. I'm just saying it's kind of something extra to throw in.
All right, I got 2 business cards here. I got one from Steven Sutter.
That's cool.
Yeah, he makes these out of wood.
I see that.
Gets laser. I'm showing the people at home, Steven. Stop
it.
interrupting. And we're not going to show his phone number, but it has all his information on the back. It's laser etched in there. He did this at his school. He's 18, so he did it when before he graduated.
That's just wood?
Yeah, and he designed this.
Nice.
Here, check it out. And then the other one is from Sam Green Photography. You see it? It looks just like the inside viewfinder of your camera. You can you have all of the focus points, and you have that stuff right there. And it's pretty cool. I like this one. This, he said, was about 75 cents each.
Nice.
But he was able to get them for maybe 50 cents.
Do you know where he got them from?
Yeah, he has the website. I forget what it is.
Okay.
Custom Plastics or something. I'm thinking of doing this for See the World keychains.
Yeah.
It'd be pretty cool.
Yeah.
So I thought that was unique that these 2 guys came up with a unique business card that's a leave behind. I rather see this, because then, guess what? You didn't spend $10. You can go to my website and see my work in a better presentable place.
Yeah.
You don't have to plug it in, reach behind your computer, reach around your computer, put it in the suppository of the... We'll just call this the suppository show, whatever. But you know what I'm saying. You don't have to get behind the computer and plug it in. You can go to the website. So
no, I agree. Like I said, it's not a very good solution to be handing out on a daily basis, but something that, every now and then an important client comes along.
Yeah, what's next?
That'd be nice. Next up, Magic Lantern. They've done it again. They're in the news. They claim to have unlocked 3 stops of dynamic range on the Canon 5D Mark III and 70 sensors, which they're calling dual ISO. So basically, your sensor samples half of the lines at ISO 100 and the other half at ISO 1600 or higher at the same time, which creates an image that's about 14 stops of dynamic range versus, I think, 11 or 12.
That's
that they both offer.
It's pretty interesting. I didn't understand the whole dual ISO thing.
It's kind of technical, yeah.
It sounds technical. Who runs Magic Lantern?
This guy Alex, I think. I don't know for sure, but he's kind of the one that's always behind announcing everything.
Oh, that's crazy because I mean they are really pushing this stuff to the limits. I don't know if it's a bad thing. I don't know if it's not a bad thing that they're doing. I don't know why that like Nikons and Canons don't try to work with them, or maybe Nikon and Canon has that ability, but they just don't do anything with it. But they're pushing the limits here with their technology. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then putting it out there for people to try. And they've started to do some things with Nikon, right?
Have they? I don't know.
I read something last week that you could do something with one of the Nikons. They
said that it's only possible on these two cameras specifically because of the hardware. The 5D Mark III and the 7D both have 2 ISO amplifiers. So the chip that samples the image from the sensor is set via firmware to sample the same ISO from all the lines, if that makes any sense.
It makes no sense.
And the hack allows it to sample half of them at one ISO and the other half at another. So you're getting much more of a cleaner image and more dynamic range, almost like close to what an HDR image would be like.
Well, yeah, and
not nearly as much dynamic range.
As we've talked about in the future, more dynamic range is going to mean better color and more realistic images.
Yep. And it looks great. The video, the sample, the screenshots they put up looks really clean, really nice. And especially if you're using that raw video codec that they're doing now too.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
That's cool.
Yeah. We have developers at the Institute of Optics at the Chinese Academy of Sciences. They claim to have developed a 100 megapixel camera that captures about 10,000 by 10,000 pixeled image.
So it's a square.
It's a square sensor, and it's a giant 100 megapixel sensor.
What are they going to use it for?
They're going to use it mainly for aerial mapping and disaster monitoring.
I love how it's all about disaster monitoring in China because they just have so many disasters over there.
Because it's the sensor's so big, it's super sensitive and has a high dynamic range.
You know what else is so big and super sensitive, Steven?
But they're calling it the IOE3 Kanban.
Oh, what a great name, guys. Way to come up with something fantastic.
So creative. But they're calling it, or it's the highest megapixel camera in China so far. And yeah, it sports a square sensor.
So it's going to be military use?
Yeah, and it's supposedly small too. It's like 7 inches by 7 inches kind of thing, nice and...
Nice and what? Compact?
Nice and compact, yeah.
That's great, Steven.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
And we have switching over to...
Do you know what's funny, Steven?
What?
You know, I lick the microphone each week, and then we realized that you didn't check the serial number of my mic to make sure I get the same mic that I'm licking each week. So it's possible...
And we both licked each other's
You
legs.
licked my mic? You licked my mic?
I don't know. I licked the one mic here.
Is that why it smells? I don't know. All right, what's next?
We have... Switching over to the analog side, a photographer named Michael Schindler, he built a custom giant tintype camera that shoots portraits that are the analog equivalent of a gigapixel digital photo.
What size are they?
14 by 17 inch plates that they're using.
That's pretty big. You know,
it's huge.
A lot of these people are going back to using these tintype cameras.
Yeah.
We know that Ian Reuter designed what he did and did something awesome about that. And I've seen it now at weddings. People are doing these tintype images.
I saw that too.
It's cool. It's obviously you find a niche, you make something work, then that's obviously something to do. It just sets you apart.
Yeah. But it's so big that it's equivalent to the standard size of X-ray photography, which is again 14 by 17.
X-ray?
Yeah, X-ray photography. But it's pricey to develop. Apparently it's $400 in silver nitrate is only enough to develop 30 plates. So each plate requires $13 in chemicals alone.
Well, that's not bad.
It's not
for something
terrible,
that's 14 by 17. Well, look at how much prints used to cost. It used to cost for a 20 by 30. You were spending like hundreds of dollars to run that stuff through a processor. And we're talking the 80s and 90s.
I'm just saying compared to digital alone, like it's going to be a little pricier.
Is not bad
for one picture.
That's not bad.
Yeah, I guess
for an original 14 by 17 tintype.
Yeah. But for comparison reasons on how they got to the gigapixel number, a 35 millimeter frame basically contains roughly the same amount of data of a 20 megapixel digital photo, where a 4x5 inch frame has the equivalent of about 200 megapixels of digital information. And Schindler's camera contains roughly 10 times the area of 4x5 inch slots. So basically he's saying it's like equivalent to a gigapixel digital photo.
He didn't have any samples of his work?
He didn't have any
samples. Picture
of
the camera.
Just the picture of the camera, at least that I saw. But we'll have that full story up too.
Yeah.
And switching back to digital, Toshiba, They announced its new Xperia Pro series of SDHC cards.
Oh, I can't wait for these.
They're claiming that it offers the world's fastest data write speeds for any memory cards. They're advertising that the cards use the new UHS-2 high standard speed, read and write speeds of 260 megabytes reading and 240 megabyte of write speed. Man, I keep tripping over my words.
Well, what you need, though, is a camera that's capable of writing that and reading that. And
which right now there's not. I don't think there's any.
Well, most of the time you get pro cameras that do that. And pro cameras are not taking SD cards. I know the 5D Mark III takes an SD card, but
it doesn't even support the UHS-1.
Right. So unless the camera supports these write speeds, to me, SD cards are not pro cards.
Yeah.
You can call them pro cards as much as you want, the Extreme Pro or the Lexar Ultras or whatever you want, but they still have a plastic switch on the side. They are not rugged. They're not as durable as a CF card.
Yeah. And I mean, Toshiba did announce the that fastest CF card too a couple months back, which was the 1066 times write speed. I think it was 160 megabytes per second write speed.
So do they have a price and when it's available?
They don't have a price yet, but it's apparently going to be available worldwide first in Japan this October. So hopefully by November worldwide. And it's going to be 16 and 32 gigabyte versions available. So hopefully it won't be priced too much, but we'll see.
Anything else in Steven's photo news?
We have one more. We have another story about laying off the photography department in newspapers. Georgia, yeah. We have less than 2 months after the Chicago Sun-Times closed up its photo department. The domino effect is setting in. And
who wrote this article?
Who wrote it?
Yeah.
I'm not sure who wrote it, but I wrote this.
Go ahead, keep going.
But the newspaper chain in Georgia has done the same. They laid off their photography team. Now, it's not nearly as big as the Chicago Sun-Times. They only had 4 people, and they laid off 3 of them, kept 1 to be a videographer. The chain is called Southern Community Newspapers Incorporated. They own 7 papers in Georgia. And they're basically shutting down the photo department. And just like Chicago Sun-Times, they're going to give their reporters iPhones and train them on how to report everything via photographs and videos and stuff like that. And then here's what the company's CEO has to say about it. Which is kind of funny.
Here's what the company CEO has to say.
Quote, journalists need to write, shoot video, post on the internet, and edit. The technological advances in this world of digital photography made this strategic move logical. How many photographers need darkroom skills to develop film and make prints? Furthermore, it is certainly more economical and efficient to assign one journalist to cover an event in words, pictures, and video. Because they're going to have the same eye as a photographer, apparently.
Well, see, that's the thing. Anybody in school today should have these type of skills. If you're going to go be a photographer, you should have writing skills, which I am a piss poor writer, as people constantly point out. My understanding of grammar and grammatically correct writing has never been good.
English wasn't your best subject?
I speak very well.
Yeah.
But when it came to understanding anything, I'd sat in English class going, I'd raise my hand and the teacher would be like, Jared. I'd be like, I don't get it. And they'd be like, what don't you get? I'm like, anything you just said for the last half an hour. I don't understand this, the precipice, the principle, the preface, the suffix. Like, I don't know, just I speak. Anyway, if you're in school learning how to do video editing, learning how to record video, learning audio, learning how to write, learning how to take photos, if you come out and you have all of those skills, you're better set to go somewhere in a job than some people who just take pictures.
Yep.
You have to be well-rounded. You have to find your way. And that is being educated and knowing a little bit of everything.
That was pretty much what I did. And I mean, I kind of feel bad for these reporters because most likely these are reporters that have been on the job for 20, 30 plus years or something like that, where
it doesn't mean you should have stopped learning.
No, I agree. But back in the day, they're probably used to just, all about reporting and that's it. We have a photographer for that stuff, a videographer to do that. You don't need to know any of that, any of the technical stuff, blah, blah, blah. And
there's so many times that I was shooting shows that I wish I didn't have to take a writer with me.
Yeah.
A writer is not going to be, most writers, not to put it into total generalization, is not going to be able to capture a concert like you and I. Right?
I agree.
They can't do what we do, but we can certainly learn how to do video and audio and write.
Yeah.
Or write better. Like I can put a story together and then have somebody edit it. Like Ari can edit it and it's going to come out much cleaner because I was there. I talked to the artist. I interviewed the artist. And I've done this before where I've been able to do it at a show where I've done photos and I've done an interview. The only thing that I sucked at when it came to doing interviews was writing stuff down. I just like having conversation. I thought writing stuff, I couldn't do it. I didn't do shorthand. I know Ari writes in shorthand in his notebook, but if you could record the audio of everything, then you have all the quotes, then you can go back and fact check. I used to write the story of the day, like how it was and tell it like that. And I didn't exactly have the quotes that the writers would have, but that's extremely important to have.
Yeah, I agree.
So
that's it for this week's photo news.
Okay, coming to a conclusion. His name is Steven. That was photo news. This week's photo news on RAWtalk.
Yeah.
Episode 45. What?
Yeah.
Huh. All right, guys. Steven, thank you very much.
You're welcome, sir.
Coming up right now, we have an interview with Mr. Dom Savini, so stay tuned. Here we are. We've got Dom Savini, who seems to be tired. Why are you tired?
Just driving out in the sun. You know, had a long shoot this morning.
Where were you this morning shooting?
Went to shoot a tattoo company called Deep Six Labs.
Deep Six Slabs.
Labs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got it.
They're
What's the Deep Six part?
I don't know. I didn't ask them about that.
Who are you shooting for?
It's for Inked magazine. So just ran in there, did a group shoot, and then some details here and there. And
any assistance with that one, or just on your own?
No, just on my own.
Because I know you work with Richie. We've had Richie on before.
Yeah. Usually if it's not a lot of equipment or not a big ordeal, I just kind of like try to sneak in and sneak out.
Right. So when it comes to getting ink, I mean, does Ink call you, or does somebody call you and say, "Hey, we've got this job"?
They call me. I actually am friends with the editor over there, Todd Wattenberger, and he's hooked me up for a while.
That's good. And do you go out of town to do the Ink stuff as well?
Not for Ink, but for other magazines, other shoots.
So who do you shoot for?
As of late, Philadelphia Magazine. Not a lot of editorial work right now. Mostly just commercial stuff I've been doing.
Is there a reason why more commercial than editorial?
Well, editorial doesn't really pay as much as commercial work, obviously. But also, it's kind of just the ebb and flow of things. Sometimes you'll find yourself shooting, 6 editorial pieces in 1 month, and then for the rest of the year you get, pieces here and there, but not much.
Right. So
it just depends.
How do the jobs come about? I mean, you're friends with the guy at Ink.
Yeah.
But through other, you don't just shoot for one magazine. How does it all come about?
Well, you'd mentioned before, I signed up with Wonderful Machine. I've gotten a couple hits from them already. I haven't been with them too long, so I haven't really seen the result of what's come back from that.
Sure.
But I've had a couple people mention that they saw me on that site or things of that nature. That's one of the hardest things, is trying to figure out what is the best avenue for advertising yourself and getting your name out there. And it's a constant struggle. You'll try 20 different things, and maybe 2 things work, but that's kind of how you have to hit. You have to cast a lot of nets to see what pops.
How long you been in the photo game?
Well, I graduated college in the late 90s. So
the late 90s, aka like 99?
No, 97.
Oh, all right.
So,
where'd you go?
Yeah, I went to Santa Fe, New Mexico, the workshops out there.
Okay.
And worked there for a while, did a lot of like digital technician, and did a lot of AV stuff.
So you worked for other people before branching out on your own?
Yeah, I worked for a number of different photographers and retouching houses, and it kind of runs the gamut.
So how'd you end up making the transition and going, hey, I don't want to retouch your work, I want to retouch my own work?
Well, I think after a certain time, you grow more and more opinionated of what you want to do, what you want to accomplish. I think sometimes it's just a natural progression. You should want to go off on your own.
You should. There are people, though, out there that just are okay with showing up every day and doing the minimum and not striving to do it on their own.
Well, also, there's something to be said for, just wanting to be able to just go from job to job and not really worry about too much about what, the end deliverables, or,
you're not on the hook.
Deadlines. Yeah. So there's a certain freedom that comes with that, and I definitely miss that. I missed, going on a shoot in, Paris, or going across, the country for doing stuff with Nike, and like I miss those days. I'm not built up enough that I have that on my own.
Sure. So who were you shooting with when it was like a Nike gig or going to Paris or something like that?
Well, I worked with I was Nick D'Amico's first assistant retoucher for about 4 years. So we had a couple year run with Nike. That's the thing with those big companies like that. They kind of run through photographers. You'll go on like, you know, a 2-year stint with them, and then they switch over. You know, they're
Try
constantly
something else.
Yeah, they're constantly looking for the next new thing. So it's not like they stick with somebody forever.
Right.
But yeah, so we had a short run with that. Also worked with Gary Land out of Boston.
How did you find these guys?
Just connects in the business.
Because a lot of people want to know, like, I send emails to these photographers and nobody wants to give me a chance. And well, that's going to happen because there's so many people trying to get a gig. How did you get your foot in the door?
I'll tell you what usually works with stuff like that. Networking face to face with other people. For me, that's kind of how I've gotten the next job. Always trying to, put your personality out there as part of the package, because people want to work with people that they like. So, they want to see how you work, personally, and how you are as a, human.
And that's where emails fall short.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially, there's a lot of times I'll get an email that has, paragraphs and paragraphs of, I do this, I do that. And honestly, you just want to do like a short introduction, say you're interested in working with the person, and then, start the conversation there. You don't want to have a, totally one-sided, 2-page email. Yeah,
well, then 2 pages email. I know that when I send emails, I get to the point. Mm-hmm. It's like, hi, my name is, this is what I'm looking to do. Here's what the offer is. Let's get to it, because you just don't want to read through 12 paragraphs. But that, what advice would you have for these guys that have been stuck sending emails, not other than, but the best thing to do is just show up. Just show up. Try to find the people.
I would say call first, maybe.
Yeah, just show up. Or call.
Yeah, probably call. I
don't want somebody showing up at my door.
I think it's important that you realize that you're taking somebody's time. So even if you're sending an email, you're taking their time. And I know a lot of times I'll read the beginning of an email, and if I'll see how long it is, and I'll just go to the end.
That's exactly what I do, because I get so many questions.
Yeah.
So, biggest gig that you've done on your own?
On my own, biggest gig.
Is it like Eagles cheerleader stuff?
Yeah, maybe the cheerleader stuff.
How do you get that? How do you get the Eagles cheerleader gig?
That, I came across through working with the Eagles for a couple of years, and then being introduced to the cheerleaders organization, and it just came from there. You know, it's a slow build.
Nothing. I mean, we live in this instant gratification world where you expect everything to just happen tomorrow or today, and it just doesn't work that way. You really have to pay your dues, and that's where I didn't assist anybody, and that was a failure on my part. I just
still can though.
I would still like to.
Yeah.
In this position, I would like to do it. I just to change it up where I'm not the person on the job, always having to make all the decisions. I think it's a nice a come down from always shooting. Shooting's great. I'll shoot all day long. I love doing that. But if I can help somebody else out and be their right hand person, I think that's fun too.
Yeah, I mean, I think for the most part, with all that stuff, that's kind of how you learn to be professional photographer, working with other photographers, seeing how, 20 different people do it. And then you pick what you like out of each one. I like the way this person does that. I don't like the way they do that. And that's how you grow your photo identity, and figuring out what it is you like aesthetically about things, or, the process that one photographer might do over another. Those are the important things that kind of really get into, how you develop your personality as an artist.
Yeah. So I'm not going to ask you pricing, like what you charge and things like that, because it varies. But how do you determine for a gig what you're going to charge?
Well, I mean, basically, editorial rate, you're at the mercy of whatever that magazine pays.
You're we've got $400 for you, and that's take it or leave it.
Yeah. I mean, you kind of have to just divvy it all up and figure out what your actual out-of-pocket costs are, your operating costs. And then from there, it's basically just going back and forth, between the client and you, figuring out what's an agreeable price. Some people will tell you what they want to work within, and other people will say just let me know what you're thinking,
Right.
And then if you come in too high, then they'll be like, okay, this is. I've only had like one or two clients that kind of just never got back to me because my estimate was too high. Usually it's somebody, if they want to work with you, they'll come back and say, well, that's a little bit out of our range.
Can you do this?
Yeah, can you do this? So, yeah, I mean, I think generally, a well-versed client will react that way.
Sure.
There's also kind of like, new clients or people that are new into marketing their business, and you kind of have to guide them through and let them know what actually the process is. I've had clients where especially those types, you have to be careful because they're not used to how things go down.
Sure.
And it's just making sure that expectations are managed and things of that nature.
Well, yeah, expectations being managed is a major thing because there's times where you finish a job and somebody goes, but you said you were going to do this. And you're like, well, no, I didn't.
Yeah.
That's why it's really important at the forefront to get all of that stuff laid out at the beginning.
Yeah. Generally what I do with scenarios like that is I put in the estimate, just line items of what, the day rate is, what costs are, incurred through it, props, assistance, things of that nature. And then, you have to kind of be honest with yourself and figure out what you're going to be potentially, purchasing or renting or,
Do you rent a lot of gear opposed to owning it?
I do rent gear from time to time, mostly lenses. It depends, I've definitely, one of the first times that we shot the cheerleaders, I rented a faster or a speedier camera just so.
What, a 1DX?
Yeah, we rented a 1DX just because it's a lot easier to shoot it in a sports style than to kind of just slowly direct
Sure.
the models.
So that was where'd you guys go to shoot that, the Eagles cheerleaders?
First year we went to the Bahamas.
So they pay for that. You go out to the Bahamas, you hang out with cheerleaders, and you take pictures. And then I saw Richie's Instagram feed, so he was posting pictures of.
Yeah, this year we shot the Jersey Shore, which was a little different.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, why? Because
it was late in May and it was still about like 30 degrees. So it was a little tougher, but we,
just cold cheerleaders.
You just got to use artificial light.
Yeah, to make it look warm.
Yeah.
And just move the Kelvin, move the white balance up just a little bit.
Actually, didn't do a lot of that. Mostly it was, it was all in the light.
Yeah.
Gelled light or gel reflectors.
So are you more of a natural light guy or are you more of a additive light guy?
Well, I mean, my background's in studio, so for me, that was my starting point. But I used to do a lot of street photography in college, so I like to look for light too. I think for me, it's kind of like, it's almost like a little like scavenger hunt. Sometimes you just you'll notice something, or sometimes you'll look and see how light's pouring in. Or I like natural light. I've been actually shooting more, especially with the cheerleaders, and it's something that I think especially if you're a studio photographer, you have to take a second and try something totally different outside of your of your natural element. That way, it just flex your photo brain. It makes you and it forces you to kind of think in a different manner.
Because a lot of people always ask, should I stay shoot things that I know and not branch out? I mean, it makes sense. You should try different things. You never know when that job is going to come about, that it's like, hey, we need you to go shoot the cheerleaders, but in a natural environment without extra light. We want to show you the editorial side of it, and we want to do the studio side of it. Yeah. So that's always something you have to keep shooting.
Yeah, I mean, I think you shoot what you know in terms of your interests. But in terms of practicing, there's times where I practice photography.
Yeah, what do you shoot?
I don't know. I mean, I'll just go outside, or I'll just, I'll do certain things that I've never done before, or, say, working with different light modifiers or different, reflectors just to see what they do.
Yeah.
I mean, you constantly have to build your skill. I think that's what a lot of, especially young photographers, they kind of think that that it's only a matter of intrinsic skill, so that you either are born with it or you're not, instead of practicing your art and trying to get better at it and trying to like build on what you have.
I mean, there is a thing that is you're born with it. Some people are born with it. Some people learn it. Not everything has to be straight out of the box.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to think that doctors aren't born with it. They're not born to be a doctor. They still had to learn how to be it. You just don't see the progression of it. So you might have a natural leaning towards wanting to create or wanting to, draw or paint or things like that, but you still have to learn that part.
Yeah, you still have to master
so I
the
think,
skills.
and I think people don't believe as heavily into that, And I'm a firm believer that you have to try to master your craft. You have to constantly work at getting better at it.
Yeah.
And trying to figure out, because once you start getting complacent, then you're just gonna do the same images.
Or when you get complacent, you end up getting fired from the newspaper, and they fire 30 people at once. Yeah. But hey, you still have to. Yeah, that's good. Do you get into video at all now?
Yeah, actually, I'm working with an artist, Mr. Liff, who's also a friend of mine, and we're gonna do a video for one of his upcoming tracks.
Dude, is it another rapper?
Mm-hmm.
He's another rapper. So yeah. Freeway, I saw the pictures of Freeway.
Yeah.
On that green stuff, was that real or was that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Interesting. Enough to put you away for a while.
Oh yeah, probably.
How'd that feel?
But it wasn't mine. So
no, it wasn't yours. No. You shoot the roots a lot?
I have in the past. Yeah, I mean, I've worked with those guys a lot. I actually know some of the people that I've worked with them over the years, and that helps too. Just trying to like stay within those circles, and that's kind of you asked earlier about how I get jobs. I think one of the major things is I started to get into photography mostly because it was a way for me to experience a lot of the things I was interested in, so sports or hip hop. And I think that's kind of like, it allowed me to be around those things more. And it's a reciprocating thing. It keeps me around it. And then I also get jobs from that too. So, staying in those circles and kind of like, keeping around your interests is one of the things that, also helps build getting jobs.
Sure. How much of your time is spent doing business versus actually shooting?
It depends. I mean, I think mainly what I do is I'll try to take a chunk of free time and just get all of those things done. I'll, instead of doing, billing one invoice here and one invoice there, I will just take time and just go through it all. I'll just take time and just do bills. I'll take time and just do, updates on my website. I think you just had to kind of compartmentalize it and just get it done. Those are your chores, and then just
so it's time management. I mean, most people know that you don't spend all day shooting. Like you're not spending 100% of your time shooting. You're not like, well, even Annie Leibovitz. You think of Annie Leibovitz going to do a shoot. The lights are already set up. The camera's already ready to go. They just hand it to her, and she, I don't like that light over there. I don't like that light over there. Just move it, and then she shoots. I'm sure there's business on the other end, but that would be a life to get to if you can get to that point.
Yeah, well, I mean, ideally she has somebody who's handling the business part of, her,
big
her
business
profession.
Oh yeah, $250,000 to go shoot for Vanity Fair, and that'd be good money. Yeah, it'd be interesting. And hey, just go shoot here, go shoot there, shoot everywhere, and get paid, and then just show up and push a button. Right, push a button. Don't you love hearing that?
Yeah,
just push a button.
But what the funny thing is that all the work, of that has already happened. That's why she's
she
at
got
that
there.
point.
Oh yeah, from touring and with all the bands and just being the girl on the road. living there. That stuff is tremendous. I like her work from back in the day personally, because that was, I have some of her books. I bought those because I love the music stuff, the on tour, the non-commercial setup, Vanity Fair stuff, because she was in it. And that's what I look for when I'm on the road too, is just being in it to get those images. Yeah. So where do you want to take your photography? What is your ultimate goal?
For me, I want to do some more athletes, maybe outside of their, elements. I'm a big fan of the human body in motion. I have athletes all throughout my, my portfolio. I don't know. It's something that I don't really think about too much, because I'm usually trying to figure out what I'm doing at the moment. So I haven't really set out to make any plans for, a book or a body of work that's like my next like personal project.
Do you do a lot of personal projects?
Not as of late. Right now it's just trying to like survive in the photo market.
Well, how are you doing? You doing well?
Yeah, this year's been great. Yeah.
There's so many people coming out. How do you stave off the people coming up, just trying to take the jobs? You just hope that the report that you made. Well, that's the truth. So, I mean, you have to kind of think of it that way. You can't really think about other people as kind of like your competition or your enemies. You just have to concentrate on what you're doing. I think that's the one thing is, because I don't think like illustrators think that way. I don't think illustrators are like, oh, this, or maybe they do. I don't know. Maybe they worry about other commercial illustrators that get different gigs. But I learned early on that if you kind of think in that mode, you're just gonna make yourself upset anyway. Well, it's the same thing that if you try to emulate other people and you don't just try to stick to what you do best, you can run into trouble there. You have your style. Well, I mean,
I think it's okay to emulate if you're a student and you want to
figuring out your way.
Yeah. I think that's fine. I think it's okay to try stuff that people do, and I think when you do that, you actually sometimes figure out your voice in it. There's times where I've been inspired with stuff and I've seen it and I've been like, oh, I want to do something like that. I like that look. I like that style of lighting, and it inspires you. You might not be trying to copy it, but you still use
a couple of
those
elements.
techniques or elements or the approach or, it's funny because there's actually, I don't know, even seeing like shallow depth of field portraits, like sometimes I'm like, I don't do as much of that, and I kind of do like that look, and you get so wrapped up in like doing studio lighting and, getting the prime aperture of a lens and trying to get like the total sharpness of it. You don't let a lot of the happy accidents happen again.
Happy accidents? What are we getting? Bob Ross comments right there?
Yeah.
I love Bob Ross.
Yeah.
He's super awesome. Super awesome. Yeah. So how do you, would you classify your style as anything? Just is what it is.
I don't even really think of like myself as having a style. I think some of the stuff that is more kind of my style is more illustrated over top.
So the post-production stuff.
Post-production, yeah.
So you do a lot of what do they call when you're putting two images together?
Compositing. Yeah, I mean, for a while there, that was how I shot. I would kind of reverse engineer imagery, and it was out of necessity because I didn't have a studio where I could just kind of shoot stuff and build backgrounds and build sets. So I would, go photo hunting for dirt piles or, buildings that I wanted in a shot. And I would kind of just take studio shots that mimicked outdoor lighting and just reverse engineer and kind of like compile stuff together.
It seems like over the past couple of years, this highly stylized composite images with a lot of post-production has been what these guys are looking for. You've seen it in a lot of places, or I've seen it in a lot of places, and you sit there and you go, wow, there's so much post-production done. And you get the traditional side of the people going, well, they didn't create that in the camera, so it's bad. And then you just look at it realistically. It goes, well, you have the tools to do this stuff today. There's nothing wrong with creating that image.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was really struck one time when I was out in New Mexico, and everybody out there is a photographer. So one photographer asked me, he was like, what type of photographer are you? I was like,
oh, one that takes pictures.
I was like, I don't know. I don't really think about being a type of photographer. And he was like, well, I'm a traditionalist. I was like, well, what does that mean?
Wait, but did he roll up his wagon with his large format camera?
Yeah, he did. He didn't have a wagon, but yeah, he was, a large format landscape photographer.
But see, even those guys aren't traditionalists. You're not a traditionalist unless you take it all the way back to the beginning. And do you have a daguerreotype? Do you bring that out?
But I mean, also, I think people place importance on that for some reason. And for me, it doesn't make sense to me.
Well, it's like people yell at me because I don't crop. It's my personal preference is I don't crop. When I shot sports, I didn't crop. When I talked to these other sports photographers, like the Sports Illustrated guys, I realized that everything they did was cropped. That's just how they did it. But that's my own personal belief is that I don't crop for... it started in high school. It started where if you raised the enlarger, you knew that the grain got extra big and that the images didn't hold up as well. So if I filled the frame, I didn't have to worry about that later. Yeah. So I've carried that on to digital because in early digital, the more you crop, the more quality you lost.
Well, I think it also depends too. There's a lot of times where, I'll shoot something and then I'll, zoom out and give it a little extra room or breathing room.
Especially for publication.
For publication, yeah, because you need bleed. You need them to be able to, crop into it a little bit.
And you have to, and are you okay with, if you're not doing the post-production of do you do all the post-production of your work?
Not always. There's clients that, especially the Eagles cheerleaders, they do that in-house because they have people there. Yeah, I mean, it depends on, how much you care about it.
Well, I used to care way too much, but the problem is you either get the job or you don't. So you have to make the decision, do I want to get paid to do this and allow somebody else to edit it? And you're like, well, with your own personal work, you can do whatever you want. But when it's for hire, you kind of make your client happy.
I'm okay with it as long as it still looks, somewhat representable of what I shot.
Well, do you get to write that into a contract? Do you get to, you just trust that they'll be able to?
And then it's also like on some images, it'll be that way and some of it's not. And I think... you kind of have to divorce yourself from it a little bit.
Because it's a job sometimes.
It's a job. Yeah. And also because, in the end, they're paying you and it's not your work at the end,
Unless unless they love your editing and they're like, hey, do everything, shoot it, edit it, turn it in. Right. We'll love whatever you get. But when it comes to magazines, you never know. It may not fit the layout and they may need to do something to it.
And also, I mean, I don't, not every job is that meaningful to me, where I consider it like a personal, piece. Mm-hmm. And so I'm okay. Like if they think it looks better this way, that's fine.
Yeah. So what words of advice would you have to people listening, beginners, amateurs that are looking to pick up some extra gigs? What are the things they can do?
I would just say be not aggressive, but keep at making contact with people. There's a lot of times where I've had somebody contact me and I hadn't gotten back to them, and it's kind of out of sight, out of mind. But then they'll follow up and say, hey, I just wanted to see if you got my email, and that's that. And that's a great way to follow up. Hey, just checking in, want to see if you got my email.
Because it's easy to easy to ignore emails too.
Yeah, and it's also easy to miss them sometimes.
Yeah,
especially if you're getting a lot of spam.
Yeah.
So I think you kind of have to pick and choose your battles. Definitely go after photographers that if you want to assist, go after photographers whose work you're interested in. Don't be afraid to ask questions, but always, be very professional. I think a lot of times, especially with photo shoots, sometimes they can be kind of like laid back and people can be, kind of friendly and jovial. And then, somebody will forget that it's still a professional atmosphere. It's still a job.
Yeah.
So, kind of like know your boundaries, but also try to be try to be of help to somebody. You know, like I'm going to hire somebody who makes my job easier and doesn't just show up and then charge.
That you have to tell everything.
Yeah.
Do this, do that.
Yeah.
I mean, and a good assistant is thinking well ahead, 5 steps ahead.
Yeah,
they
you
know
gotta
where
be,
you want
gotta be
things to be.
proactive. You got to, you know, kind of ask questions or try to help out. Or if you see, you know, a photographer's, you know, trying to get taller or shoot, you know, is on his tippy toes, bring a chair over. Or
It's all anticipation.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
just, and that's what I love the challenge of working with somebody else sometimes, because it's different. It changes it up. It's great to shoot, but it's also cool to help others out and just be, it's good to be like, you see that. You see they're on their tippy toes. You're like, oh, I got the stool. Hold on. And you bring it right over and they're ready to go and they just keep shooting. And they don't need to say thank you. They don't need to do any of that. They'll thank you later for being on the wall.
Yeah. You know, you just got to anticipate problem solving.
Yep. That's the key to that part.
Yeah.
So where can people see your work?
DomSavini.com.
It's really easy to spell.
DOMSAVINI.
It's really easy. Google that. You have your website. You have your portfolios up there.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to leave before we finish?
That's it.
Nothing? All right. Well, thank you for coming out today.
Thank you.
All right, Dom. All right, guys, stay tuned. We're going to do an abbreviated or an abridged version of Flying Solo coming right up. All right, so it's time to do an abbreviated or AKA abbreviated version of Flying Solo. I want to really thank Dom Savini for coming out here. He had some really good information. Check out his site, domcevini.com. You can see the cheerleading photos. You can see some of these composites that he's created. Some really good stuff. So, Steven, this is how we're doing it this week because I don't want to go terribly too long. Give me 10 minutes on the clock.
10 minutes.
Tell me when to start.
All right. We are going to go in 3, 2, 1, go.
All right. This is the speed round of Flying Solo. Dan Grenenum. Hey, Jared. Hey, Steven. At what stage do you ask for payment from a client? Before, during, or after? Well, it depends. When do hookers do it? They usually do it before. Steven, when do hookers do it?
I guess before. I don't know.
I don't know either. I haven't watched the... they probably do ask for it before. Like on that TV show, I only have 10 minutes.
Yeah, keep
anyway,
going.
So depending on what it is, like if you don't know the people, it's a good idea to get half up front and half at the time of delivery. That way, you have money and you're not... They're more apt to not cancel on you if they've already paid you money. So getting money is like a, hey, we're actually going to be there type of thing. All right, next question. Shirag Patel. If you hire a photographer for your event simply because you were involved in the event yourself, how do you avoid being a control freak and not get upset when photos that are delivered are not up to your standards? We recently had our engagement party and I took a few shots myself, which turned out way better than the professional photos. Any idea on how to cope with it other than not to hire photography people? What? Other than to not hire the photograph people, or I don't know what she just said here. I basically think it says that they were not happy with the photographer that her friend hired, that she took better photos as a professional. Here is my recommendation. If somebody doesn't know what to look for in a photographer and they ask you to do it, well, that's a good thing. You then help them find a photographer who they should hire, who does have good photos. If they took terrible photos and yours are better, that's kind of on them for not really following through and finding out that these people weren't as good or aren't up to par with the work that you're looking for. So there's research that has to be done. Anybody out there who's getting married and isn't sure about who to hire as a photographer, ask a photographer. They can help you find who to talk to, get the right questions asked, and then be happy ultimately with your images. Time?
8 minutes left.
Joe Browning. I live in a town with a ton of photographers who do weddings. How do I ensure that my business gets exposure so I can get work in a sea of photographers? I think we probably covered this in the marketing hour and the wedding hour, so I should skip it, right?
Yep.
If you haven't heard the marketing hour or the wedding show, check out RAWtalk 43 and RAWtalk 44. They're awesome. Jerry Hess. I know we take cars in for a tune-up, so my question is, should we bring our DSLRs and lenses in for any checkups? The reason I ask is if I have some dust on my sensor on my D70 and they said it's only $40 to have cleaned, which sounds like a great deal, what do you think? Well, there's nothing wrong with having your sensors cleaned. Do I send my stuff in periodically? If there's an issue with it, yes. If there's something dust on the sensor, I can kind of clean that myself if I want. I can get sensor swabs. I usually don't like doing it myself. Steven, do you clean your own sensors?
No.
No, it's not very expensive to get it done. You can send it back to Nikon. You can send it back to Canon. Some stores have the ability to do this in the store. Excuse me, but what I would recommend is that you check to see that they have insurance first, that if they do botch the thing, that you're not out because they messed up your image sensor. So lenses, you really don't need to do too much to. You can just clean those on your own, the front element and the back element. It's really the sensor, but you don't really need to send the stuffs in for check. You don't really need to send your bodies in for checkups too often. They just don't really need it. Matt Woodhouse, who put the bump in the bump? Who put the ram in the ram la dinga dong? Who put the bop in the bop shoe bop? Who put the dip in the dip do dip do dip da dip? That was the Big Bopper, I think. Alan Corden. I use Nikon at the moment, but I want to switch to Canon because I'm just starting out and I don't have a lot of money to spend on expensive lenses. I usually see Canon lenses have more variety than the other like f4 and 2.8 zoom lenses and so on. I just want to know if it's a good idea to move brands because of lens prices. Please answer. I want an honest opinion about it. Should I move? Well, he asked for an honest opinion, Steven. I was going to be nice. I was going to be really nice and not take this angle, but since he asked for it, are you crazy? Making statements like they don't have the same Nikon and Canon pretty much have the same lens for lens. The bump. The only one they don't have is they don't have a 14 to 24 on Canon side. They do have a lot more f4 lenses, but they have a 24 to 70, a 70 to 200, a 300 2.8, 400 2.8, 500 f4, 600 f4. The main lenses are basically all the same, right, Steven?
Yeah.
Stop taking up my time.
The main high-end lenses, and I'm just going to talk.
Go ahead.
No, I'm kidding. The main high-end lenses are just as much. They're the same price, pretty much.
And they're basically the same price.
Yeah.
So if you already have Nikon, why waste money switching unless you can get a great deal for switching everything over and you can get quality glass? It's okay to switch. I even think about switching to a 1DX at times. Will I do it? I don't know. We'll see, but that's not what this is all about. Bjorn Bilstein. Hey, Jared and Steven. I would enjoy a fro walk in Sweden. I really love the shutter sound of my D3. Do you have any favorite shutter sounds? Yeah, I think the Nikon shutters sound a hell of a lot better than the Canon.
Canon sounds a little wimpy.
The 5D Mark III sounds like a wimpy camera. The 1DX feels great, but the Nikons really do sound like Panzer divisions in your face. David Ryland. Hi, Fro. Can you please do a photo walk here in Sweden? Another Sweden? Sure. It would be so fun. Did you watch A-Team and/or MacGyver when you were a kid? Thanks. Yes, I watched A-Team and MacGyver and Quantum Leap and He-Man. That's what I watched. Mark Bainbridge.
4 minutes left.
Is there a best way to take a portrait of someone with a lazy eye? Yeah, put sunglasses on them. Honestly, I don't. It's very, very difficult to shoot people with lazy eyes because if it just moves, it moves. There's nothing you can do about it. You can't dangle a string and be like, hey, look over here. If one eye goes over there and the other guy goes over here. You could try fixing it in post-production, but that could upset somebody maybe. Steven, you have a quick answer for that?
No.
That's not very easy. John Verino, have you whipped out a ruler and measured it? Just how long it is? Your hair, I mean. My hair's like 12 inches. Also, how much time is spent getting it just right for the videos? We spend time my hair. It takes 31 minutes to do my hair when I'm done the shower.
31 minutes exactly?
Yeah.
You time
Andy
yourself?
McGarry. I do photography as a hobby with no interest in doing it as a business. Is or should the mindset be different? At the minute, I am just sticking to a few areas of photography that I enjoy. Time is limited, but should I keep trying other styles of photography even if I don't get the enjoyment out of it? Well, it's always good to learn, but if you don't enjoy something, don't do it. It's like saying, I don't like that type of food, but I'm going to continue to eat it. No, and especially if you're not gearing up to be a pro, if you just like shooting. If something interests you, shoot it. If it doesn't interest you, don't. Moki Chow. I'm interested in hearing your experience with the various social media platforms you use to share your information. You have done a lot of YouTube, podcast, forum, blog, Facebook, Twitter, etc. How do you find time? How's your experience with them? Which gave you the biggest boost in reach? Honestly, there's smart ways to do it. I do Facebook and I do Twitter. I'm trying Google Plus again for a little bit, but I found the biggest bumps. I built my website based off of YouTube. YouTube built me, and then Facebook continues to push traffic, the most traffic out of all of the places. Filters, ND, polarizing, etc. Do you use them? What are your recommendations for what I'm looking to purchasing? Blah, 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 blah. Michael Castles. Filters. I do not use any clear filters. I would use a neutral density filter for doing video outside when you need to cut down on the amount of light coming in so you can use a lower aperture when it's too bright. And a circular polarizer is something I would use. Phil Thompson. Where in the world is Carmen Sandiego? Do you even know what that is, Steven?
Yes, I know what that is.
You better know what that is. I don't know where Carmen Sandiego is this week. I love that show. That was so good. Where's Carmen? All right.
Minute
Darren,
30.
What?
Minute 30.
No. Darren Michael Turner. Who'd win in an arm wrestling? You or Steven? Me. Steven would lose. But I'm left-handed. Do you see these guns?
They are pretty big.
Do you see these guns? Oh. This is a long question. I'm skipping it. Long question. I'm skipping it. Mike Johnson, looking forward to your Flash guide. I need to buy a flash soon and I can't practice right away. What flash do you recommend on my D7000? Any flash that has manual that you can learn and use. That is what I recommend. Even those young news are only $90 or so.
1 minute.
1 minute. Christian Gratz. What I've always wondered, what's your aim when you photograph for somebody? Is it, oh shoot, I went and hung up the rest of the question on the door outside, Steven.
Oh.
That was my UP, that's what I wrote on UPS because I didn't know we were going to do this.
Keep going.
Adrian Butcher, 7200, 2.8 versus F4. I'm a fro, want to be a pro, shoot some weddings and babies, etc., but wondering if I should buy the F4, wait a few years before dropping a ton more for the 2.8 or jump all in. Go all in. It's all about the glass. I just drew on the table again. 2.8 lenses is where it's at, in my opinion. Don't spend the money on the F4 if you can spend a little more and get to 2.8, especially for what you're shooting.
20 seconds.
40.
20.
19. 18. I don't have anything else, Steven.
All right,
that's pretty much
seconds.
it. So continue to go. We're going to wrap this episode up. I want to thank Dom Savini for coming on. Don't forget to check out the Antonelli Institute podcast that is up only on the, if you're a subscriber or wherever you can find it online, you can take a listen to that. The Fro Strap is currently out. Thanks to Rokinon for these lenses. We're going to be sending them back because we just did our reviews, getting rid of them. And his name was Steven. Steven, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, so secret words, I'm sure there was a bunch of them. I mean, this was the anal hour. Sort of. Rectal, what? Suppository.
Oh, God.
Just suppository.
Hashtag.
Repository. And that, my friends, is where we will end this episode of RAWtalk number 45. Jared Polin, FroKnowsPhoto.com. See ya.